Aloha. With this video, I wanted to expand a little bit on generally where I'm coming from and jump off the last video and go into more of an idea of a deeper interpretation of the differences between information as entertainment and information as like potential energy and information as kinetic energy. Because from how I see the mainstream potato show flat earth interpretation and approach to the flat earth overall, it's very just potential. It's very kind of bland, and there's no fire there. It might be a lot of energy. You might be playing with a lot of air and a lot of earth, but there's no fire there. There's nothing that is actually rooted in the earth to ground and spark that fire. There's nothing there. It's very just like, oh, look at this. This is some information. It's very entertaining. It's very eye-catching and ear-catching, and it's taboo. It's fringe. It's all these things that are very interesting to people who are normally, bogged down by nothingness, just chaos and emptiness and this bland, just basic American dream, apple pie at best reality. Everything else is locked into this impoverished lifestyle that is nothing less than on purpose. So we see all these things that are on purpose, and when I saw the idea of flat earth, which was the reality of heliocentrism, that's when I started to say, well, naturally, I activate any kind of information or energy that comes within my path into a space of kinetic energy. I'm not interested in entertaining people. That's not my main thing. If anything, the entertainment value comes along to add like a fluidity to the information itself, but the intent is based upon activated information, energy that can be tuned into some kind of from potential to kinetic energy, because information on its own is just potential energy. It's not going to light up, it's not going to spark, it's not going to move anywhere until the information gets processed through consciousness. In order to create a space, it has to have some kind of foresight, it has to have some kind of grounding agent and a movement in a direction that is going to be conducive to energy production or information production, which is the same thing. So that happens when an individual or group of people take a whole bunch of information that is rooted in something natural, something real. This is why so-called flat earth is so catchy. But flat earth is not the only thing that's catchy. People who have had ayahuasca experiences or DMT experiences or psychedelic psilocybin mushroom experiences, or even just smoking cannabis, you can get to a space of clarity. You can get to a space of understanding, overstanding, and interpreting your reality that isn't as accessible as it is when you're in those spaces normally. So what that does is it reprograms and it rewires your entire reality to not waste energy anymore. You become more energy efficient when you're more knowledgeable about this reality. See, the energy that we produce gets wasted when we channel this energy into a prepositioned control grid, a matrix that is designed to harness that energy. So you have like supercomputers that are running, Microsoft 98 software, Windows 98 software. So this software, which is not only the mainstream narrative, but every single tentacle that's connected to the mainstream narrative, which includes the theoretical universe, the university system, public education system, the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the politics, the poison food, the poison air, the poison water, the genetically modifying, all of the agendas, everything that's out there is a part of a destructive intelligence that is very definitely tuned into harnessing the energy that exists within the human experience based upon the human people, or the not even going into just consciousness as itself, the experience itself being out of tune, out of whack, in chaos. If it's in chaos, then parasites can thrive within the gaps of that chaos. This is what happens when parasitic people start to leak into these people that they use as energy cells, as batteries. They suck the life right out of them, whether it's through a psychological, physical, or spiritual control. You can go from cults, you can go to the cult of a university system, and you can go into the actual, imprisonment of people for what? For the cult of colonialism, the cult of materialism, the cult of Western civilization. These are all forms of cults that are designed to affect your natural culture, which is your relationship with your ancestors, the earth, and yourself as a whole. That includes everything and everybody that is within this consciousness observation grid. Like, what is going on? Can you feel this? Can you taste this? Do you feel something when something is wrong? Like, what are you going to do about that? That's kinetic energy. When you're just existing like basically, if you're just looking for entertainment, you're a parasite. That's what the entertainment consciousness is. By itself. Not saying that it's all bad, obviously. Music is entertaining. Performances are entertaining. But when you only exist, like when your soul is only filling itself up with the fuel of entertainment, this is when people become obese. Spiritually, physically, psychologically obese. So we have these new agers who are becoming spiritually obese because they're downloading all of this information, but it's not anchored in anything. So it just filters through them and exists in the moment, but spiritually it's just gaining all of this potential energy, but not utilizing it for what it is, what it could be used for. So all of the knowledge about like loving yourself and like creating communities that, build their own gardens and produce their own food and do all this stuff and live more holistically and have all these medicines that could heal outside of prescription drugs, if it's just hoarded in a particular new age community and it doesn't go out anywhere beyond that, well, then you're limiting yourself to a lower version of consciousness. That high version potential energy in that consciousness is being compressed and diminished by the consciousness of Western so-called civilization. It's being shrunk down and crushed into nothing, and a nothing that is like the biggest nothing there is, because it's based upon keeping people from experiencing the biggest something out there. To be shrunk down to, if you have the potential to do so much as an individual, think of what you have as a mass of people. Now look at that as energy, spiritual energy, intellectual energy, even a small group of people. If, like even 100 people in one big city got together and just like started talking about this and started to address every single contingency plan that the system might have to address whatever we might have, literally going into the chess moves, because that's where I wanted to go into with this video, which is a chess move that I make on this channel that is a reflection of like what I'm also in many ways bringing to the surface for people to start to realize that they could possibly do if they tune into it, which is not only vest all your energy in the entertainment or the attractiveness, or it's really loose. There's no guidance there. There's no nothing. It's just like, let's just pour all of our energy into getting the masses to realize that the earth is flat. Like, it's gonna fucking matter if you still have a mass of enslaved minded people. Like, but still here but just imagine people just pouring all this junk, like this information. I don't want to say junk, just pouring like pouring something into a well, but all of it is just entertainment. All of it is just like, it's not attached to anything. They're just pouring all this information into this void, but not really telling the story of why the information was created in the first place and how all these other information threads affect us the same way. And that's why I speak so much in reference to the human story, because the human story is actually the epicenter of what is spawned. Like, why was heliocentrism created very generally on a large scale? Is to control people, to funnel energy, to complete control people on every single level, the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual. So you're talking about the control of people. You're talking about the human story, control grid. It's just flat earth and heliocentrism. This is just one tentacle, one faction of a larger picture. And it never ceases to amaze me how day after day people still stay on the let's just keep looking at license plate that say flat earth over and over and over again. If you want to think about, like, you know, controlled opposition or anything like that, you don't have to be confirmed in any kind of way. People are already doing it, whether they're consciously or unconsciously doing it, by distracting people, by keeping people in this bubble of, you know, this is just a desensitized, you know, sort of information. Like, it's very akin to the way civil rights addressed racism. Did it really go into the psychology of white supremacy and racism overall? People being lynched and burned and blown up, their entire communities destroyed, babies being fed to alligators, slavery, paper genocide, actual genocide, the colonization of the entire earth. You think the Civil Rights Act did anything for the psychology of that? Absolutely not. And that's on purpose, to see if people were going to buy that shit. And they did. They co-opted all of the leaders. They killed the leaders that they couldn't co-opt, and then put out the information that they wanted you to know and they wanted you to think like. Focused it all around voting. What is that energy? Like, that's what that Selma movie was all about. They took the energy of Martin Luther King and just channeled it straight into voting rights. They used Oprah and Common and whoever else was in the Selma movie to make you buy that shit. To reactivate the original mind control program. The same way people keep calling themselves African American. It's just two nothing things that don't relate to you. The majority of the people that are already that are melanated in the Americas were already here and got shit to do with no Atlantic slave trade. These are the stories that are being kept from the masses of people. And these are the stories that automatically lock into kinetic energy. That's what I was talking about before. It activates you inherently because you're rooted. Something comes to life inside of you when you start to remove these mind control programs. The Potato Show ain't talking about removing no fucking mind controls other than heliocentrism. And that's their bread and butter. That's all they care about because that's all they know. The thing is, are you going to base your universal deception, like unveiling that, are you going to let that story be told by people who have no fucking understanding of the human story? They literally avoid that shit. These are fucking cartoon characters. They have absolutely no interpretation of how deep this story goes. If they have no empathy because they haven't experienced that, then they're only going to be able to allow themselves to go so deep into understanding, and overstanding what is going on. You have people who have lived through the shit, who are still living, who are the descendants of ancestors who have been going through the deepest of the deepest shit. The storylines are so deep that these motherfuckers in this potato crew, they can't even comprehend that shit. Even if they fucking thought about it, they would probably cry every fucking day. It's bullshit. And then you become the bad guy. Like when you ever talk about racism, you run the risk of being called racist. But that's that whole, Pee Wee Herman sort of deflection, distraction mentality of, let's not address the issue. Let's just win the debate or win the argument. That's the chaotic language. So what I'm talking about and what other people are talking about expanding this information it's a completely different language. We got to get out of this old school sort of, it's very reflective of a patriotic bullshit of, who can yell the loudest in this debate, who's the strongest, I'm the king of the ring and all this other stuff like that. It's very one-sided. So what I'm continually addressing here in order to affect the whole is to not only share this information, but activate this, or share information that's already pre-activated so people can already see and feel that conviction in your reality. If you're just talking about flat earth license plates and putting this on National Geographic, then you're going to get some National Geographic commercial materialistic bullshit, and they'll destroy whatever thing that you thought you had and sell it back to the people the way they want to fucking sell it, so they can get the reaction out of the people that they want. That's what you're waiting on, Potato Crew, and anybody else that's following that shit as if it's just a fucking radio show. This entire control grid lied to you about the very nature of your reality, the very nature of your body, your entire scientific interpretation of this reality, down to the evolutionary monkey evolution from the Big Bang bullshit. What all this shit came from? The same people who say they discovered America. The same people today that are saying, make America great again. These are the same motherfuckers. What do you think this is? This ain't nothing different. It's the same shit. And since people are so bombarded with all this information, there's enough information to get people just arguing and distracting themselves on a regular basis to where 24 hours are completely filled with bullshit. If it's not a false flag, it's a celebrity that's dying or died or committed suicide, or if it's not one of that, something's going on with war. If it's not that, some album's being released. If it's not that, a movie's coming out. If it's not that, there's some celebrity beef. If it's not that, somebody passed out. If it's not that, it's the transvestigation. If it's not that, then it's Alex Jones broke this story. If it's not that, it's some UFC fight. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. Before you know it, how many years, months, weeks have you lost to these distractive ass stories? Because it's constantly keeping you in a world at best of potential energy. And there's only so much energy that you can get that can be translated into kinetic energy from that distractive world. The majority of it is just to distract you, completely distract you, so you don't even get to utilize any of the energy from the potential energy. And you damn for sure don't have any leftover energy to turn that potential energy into kinetic energy, because you spent all your damn time just trying to defend yourself or defend your thought patterns or your theories or your perspective, you got yourself back into the fucking one-sided game again and missed the whole point of that. It's not any one of these, it's not one individual out here that you need to be arguing with. If you ain't talking from a perspective of addressing the entire system, then what the fuck, what language are you speaking? Because you sure as hell ain't speaking any language that's really in balance. If it's not activated, if it's not automatically on fire, if your language is not automatically on fire when it comes out of your mouth, then what the fuck are you really talking about? This entertainment is a reflection of the old style entertainment, and you will get what you ask for. This is no different than the quote from John Henrik Clarke of saying that slavery, I'm probably going to mess it all up, but I'll remember the actual, I'll put it on here, but probably be at a different time code. Anyway, saying if you start history at slavery, then anything that comes after that will be progress. So this is why you get these continual slave stories in Hollywood, slave stories in the education system. The colonial, they're not colonists, they're not immigrants, they were settlers. They came, the pilgrims came over here to break bread with the native peoples. This is a mind control program. It's Santa Claus, it's the Easter Bunny, it's Mother Goose. Like, you're listening to these fairy tales. Why do you think the national anthem is such a big fucking deal right now? Because that's the essence of their illusion. Standing for the national anthem, having your slaves, because that's what it is. It's the slaves of the gladiator arena. Having your slaves revolt against the national anthem is having the slaves revolt against the nation. When you have the slaves revolt against the nation, it's no different than the slaves or anybody revolting against the stars and the stripes on the flag. When you know that what that all represents destruction. Listen to the national, listen to the Star Spangled Banner. Listen to all these things. It's all about death and destruction, conquering, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's what this world is trying to save. When you look at it from that perspective, even some of the people that are in the whatever religious perspective you're coming from, look at it as that. Like, instead of telling everybody to come to Jesus and everything and all that other stuff, start telling people to become aware of this system. Like, from whatever perspective you want to come from, becoming aware of, that's why I said, like in the last video, people say, oh, I have hope in humanity, or the new agers who say, like, I'm just going to be one with myself in the moment, and I'll just be over here, and I'll be basically like a tree, and they won't say anything. Nothing wrong with that. You can be a tree all you want. There's plenty of trees out there. If you want to be a human tree, have at it. People have done far worse than that. So, what the hell was I talking about? A tree, people. Oh, hold on. So I was talking about the religions and the people saying faith in humanity, and then people saying faith in whatever, seeing this as just a one-sided perspective of, well, yeah, that faith, and that's very strong, and that, you know, that prayer and everything, that's all strong. At the same time, you have to understand, in this reality, you have this destructive intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, from whatever you can call it, the devil, you can call it evil, you can call it this, you can call it that, whatever you want to call it. There's this intelligence, this that is basically a parasite that lives off of so many things, basically anything involving the consciousness of humanity and ignorance. That's one of its main money makers. Fear is another one, and fear is just a side effect to ignorance. So this fear and this ignorance that is being perpetrated by the system that makes money off of your fear and ignorance, and and turns it into an entertainment thing. That's what I was talking about before, John Henrik Clarke, the slavery. Basically what's happening is that this system, it's the whole quote about putting slavery out there as sort of like anything after that is just, it's great. The same thing is happening with mainstream society itself, the mainstream narrative itself. This is like putting the Donald Trump in the presidential seat, and then you think people are going to be surprised. No, it's lowering the bar so that anything that comes after that low bar looks amazing. It's just kind of like how Barack Obama looked amazing after George Bush. And people still get stuck in that political game, still can't realize that their strings are being pulled, that they're being completely manipulated. And that you can see the emotion that's being built up in people right now who are listening to this and who are thinking like, well, Obama was clearly better than George Bush, and he's way better than Donald Trump. And you're missing the whole fucking point of the fact that the entire system is what I'm talking about. I don't give a shit about these individual puppets if the entire theater is meant to mind control your simple ass. So take the personal perspective out of it for one moment, even if it's just to observe what's going on, and realize that there is a destructive intelligence out there that works in many different ways. You can go from chemtrails to the genetically modified foods to the poisoning of the water, the depopulation program, white supremacy, racism, poverty, putting guns into the inner cities, putting drugs into the inner cities, this democratic hitman, or these economic hitmen that are out there, and basically democratic hitmen. It's the same story that's out there over and over and over again. It's very multifaceted, this destructive intelligence, and it's so multifaceted that it's in the very nature that we think we are. This is why they constantly have to tell you that you're like a beast, you're like a monkey, that you're just that. You're only this physical thing. You have no higher intelligence, you have no spirit. You're just a cosmic, shart that came out of the Big Bang and over 1 million years evolved into a brain dead fucking zombie that stares at a computer screen all day. Congratulations, you made it. Now you're an evolved fucking human being. Now what? I guess we're just going to start putting technology into our bodies because we don't know how to think for ourselves. Now you want to put Google inside your brain. It's too much to push a fucking button. It's too much to look in an encyclopedia. It's too much to look into a dictionary. I'm not saying that, the dictionary and encyclopedia is better than Google. I'm just saying that, just as an example, our very nature has been de-evolved. We have been and are being de-evolved and being told that we're being evolved and being pushed into, chatteled into a certain level of consciousness that very much so will lead to your own destruction, if not self-destruction. That is the moneymaker of this grid. Ignorance, chaos, emotional triggering, fear, ignorance just keeps that circle going, living in the next generation after the next generation. Each generation is distracted with a new toy. Or back in the day, the toy was the newspaper. And back in the day, the toy was the industrial age. And then the radio came out. And then the universities, public schools. And then, segregation or integration. And then the television comes out. And then color television comes out. And then video games comes out. And then the internet comes out. And flat screen TVs. And the MP3 players, and then like smartphones and flip phones and smartphones, and then now it's just gonna keep going. The Google Glass, whatever it is, it's just gonna keep going on and on and on and on, and you'll keep being. It's just like that donkey chasing after that carrot on a rope. They keep telling you, that's the whole trick. They keep telling you, oh, in 2020, this is going to happen. Oh, in 2030, this is going to happen. Well, remember back in 2012 when they said this was going to happen in 2018 and none of that shit has happened for the positive, what they were saying. But most of this shit that for the negative, it has happened. Or if it hasn't happened, the way they said it, it's usually worse. Because people just, it exponentially grows. The ignorance, just as the intelligence exponentially grows when you stop submitting yourself, or when you stop wearing the mind control programs. The information on the positive, the expansion of your consciousness exponentially grows once you turn off the alchemy of these controllers. The same thing goes for ignorance. Ignorance exponentially grows when you have all of this access to this information and all these people around you who are bringing this information. You have to dive deeper. If somebody approaches you with something like, challenging your thought pattern on heliocentrism, or challenging, how you perceive reality as a whole, challenging, democracy, or even like this Western so-called civilization, challenging the Big Bang, like challenging that. Like, either you're going to open up, you're going to humble yourself, and then you're going to create a space to grow, or you're going to dig yourself deeper into a hole of ignorance. And that ignorance is going to be exponentially growing because the information that's available and the potential that you have to expand your consciousness is it's exponentially available for you. So if you miss out on that possibility, and you're consciously missing out because you're digging yourself into your own ignorant hole, then that's pretty much how I'm saying what is the definition of exponential ignorance growth. Like I said, when you have the potential, the access to all this information, on the other hand, and you don't have this mind control program working against you, there's no stopping you. That's why I take this stuff so personal about this whole entertainment value sort of information. It's ultimately sick. It's destructive. Because you have all this information, you have all this information. How many leaders have already lived and died because they were saying all the information that challenged this very system? Like, it's just laziness. If you think about like these YouTube channels who are talking about something as crucial as, a not heliocentric universe, you're talking about an intellectual revolution. You're talking about an intellectual, spiritual, psychological, and physical, once everything starts rolling, an entire revolution. And I don't think people are very much aware of that because they're so caught up in the entertainment value of it. The distraction becomes the mission. So that's what, flat versus globe really is. Over time, which is 3 years now, this back and forth, if you constantly have to defend, your storyline, and it's really giving a platform for, something that has no validity in the first place. There's no validity to heliocentrism, period. For the people who really go into the stories or into the information that brings about this observation of this reality, you don't have to know all the answers, which is why the people who get, cornered with their heliocentric belief systems, they have to say, well, where's the picture of the edge of the earth? It's like, what the because they have nothing else to hold on to than the pictures that were given to them by NASA, by the slave owners. So if there's more of us who are stepping out of that back and forth of, this is what flat earth is all about. It's just, flat, who's righter than thou, it's not a globe. it's flat, it's flat, and that's that. Okay, well, that's the majority of people there. Well, you have to have people who are going to say, well, what's next? Like, what, how much longer are we going to keep doing that and saying that? You only need to say it once, really. If you say it more than that, then you're kind of spinning your wheels and wasting your time in reference to something as linear as that. Either you know it or you don't. That's really all you have to say, because it becomes a belief system after a while, because there's an insecurity there. But if you lock it in to a natural interpretation of this reality, and that's another thing, it's not even about flat. I mean, you can go into the interpretations of this reality that are spiritual, ancestral, that ain't got shit to do with giving a fuck about whether it's flat or a globe. That's why I was talking about in earlier videos about like the Mayan cosmology, the Inca cosmology, and all these other indigenous interpretations of this realm. People who are trapped in the entertainment value of, flat versus globe, get lost in the image itself and don't even give a shit about the actual symbolism the symbols that are in that image are what really matter. The stories in that image actually are what matters to the consciousness of who and what you are. And people are just using that, like, to use everything else, just take it and just use it, chew it up and spit it out. You take the cosmology of like the Hopi or like the Maya and the Aztec and the Inca cosmology, and then they just say, here, look, this is it. This is proof that it's flat because the old people said so. And then you're just like, that's it. You're like, what about the symbols on there? Because that's what the old people or the ancestors of the people who are still fucking alive, they're still talking about the symbols on there. The shit that you choose to ignore, just like you choose to ignore all the other shit. Just like talking about civil rights, oh yeah, you're welcome, things have changed now. No, ain't shit changed. Ain't shit changed, it got worse. Still ain't said shit about colonialism. Still ain't said shit about broken treaties, eugenics, depopulation, the systematic genocide of the indigenous people across the earth. Now that it's leaking over into other than indigenous people or melanated people, then now it becomes a fucking problem, man. Fuck you, man. And now just because we bring that to light, or I call somebody out on that, now they want to say, oh, you're this and you're that, man. No idea. All these generations been going through this, and only now, because it's affecting you, now you want to say something. These are your ancestors who didn't say anything. And this is not to put guilt on anything. This is just to put everything into perspective right now of what's really going on. Because to this day, every day, there's always something else where somebody says, well, why are you still talking about race? And why I'm still talking about racism? Why I'm still talking about colonialism and genocide? Because this shit still fucking matters right now, because it's still a psychological issue. People still are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from that shit on every side. This is what white supremacy is. This is what people having, like, bleaching their skin and straightening their hair. That's a side effect. That's a symptom of white supremacy. Redlining, the Homestead Act, the head right system. Look these programs up yourself. There are psychological, spiritual, and physical side effects to that. The physical side effects are the poverty, the gang violence, the drugs, the overdoses, the poisoning of nature, the violence. These are the side effects to all of these psychological programs that existed before anybody who's listening to this video now was born. Before anybody was born listening to this video right now. This shit is ancient. So if you're not approaching this from a perspective of addressing the destructive intelligence at the same time as you activating yourself, your creative intelligence, If you're not aware of both of those realities, you will be out of whack and you'll just be a little less chaotic. And a little less chaotic is a hell of a lot better than complete chaos. That's like I was saying before, and people will settle for that. That's what the new age is. That's why it's so out of balance and doesn't give a fuck about, or the new age community. That's why it doesn't give a shit about like so many things that are going on in the world, and they just adopt all these different prescription drugs just to cope with the fact that that's still going on, because they don't know what to do with it. Because they are new people. They're like new age people. They live in a higher vibration, a higher frequency, a higher dimension. They don't experience that reality anymore. Doesn't that sound quite convenient for when the United Nations takes over this new world order and they want to say, oh, well, we're just not like that anymore. We've raised our vibration. We need to come together as one people, the human people. We need to just forget the past. Sounds too easy, doesn't it? Well, I pretty much said what I wanted to say in reference to the balancing out of how we approach this and activate this information, this energy, this potential energy. Like, the people who are only focusing on one facet, no different than Alex Jones only focuses on the globalists versus the patriots. The same effect is affecting people when they're only watching the potato show that's just flat versus globe. As much as you might talk about veganism and all this other shit, whatever else you want to talk about, it's still heavily inactive. It's just a story within a story, a dream within a dream. Because it's just energy for the sake of energy, which is just potential energy. It only becomes kinetic when you light it up, when you spark it, when you take it and do something with it, when you activate it in the real time. So real time includes all of the times of our past and all of the times of what's being perceived for our future. So it doesn't time. When you're talking about flat earth heliocentrism, you're literally talking about fucking time. How old are you? How many times you went around the sun? How many times, the clock went around in reference to how many times we went around the sun? You're talking about time. You're talking about the way your consciousness experiences time. So time is, you're talking about the human experience, the human storyline. When you break all of that down, you have to include all of the ancestral time, which is all of the story and all of the information of when time was perceived differently back then. There were stories in the symbolism, but now look what happened. Took flat, or all the symbols that are even stamped on those cosmology maps or whatever they are, the Mayan cosmology, all those symbols, they don't care about that. The mainstream Western way, they don't give a shit about that. It's just, hey, let's just look at this fancy new thing called flat earth. Hey, come on out and do some laser tests. Send a balloon up in the sky. Let's get some rockets. Send a rocket man up there. Let's raise some money. Hey, this is cool. Let's make a hashtag. Couple of hashtags. Hey, you're not a real flat earther. Hey, those are some real, we're the real flat earth. We're all the hell, yeah. The TV show. All potential energy and people in a potential ball of confusion. Just, lighting little sparks here and there coming from, whatever is happening in the world. Ooh, so, Kyrie Irving said something about, ooh, Eddie Bravo, Alex Jones, ooh, Shaq, ooh. Still waiting, constantly waiting. Still your life still based upon puppets and the puppet master and distraction, actors, Hollywood and shit. Willfully ignorant of what the storyline actually means. This ignorance. Intelligent ignorance. That's what potential energy is at its best. It's intelligent ignorance. It only becomes intelligence once it becomes kinetic. Before that, it's just information. A bunch of books living on a fucking bookshelf ain't got shit to do with the individual if the individual don't actually read them and do something with it. It's just a bunch of shit. It's going to collect dust. It's just information. It doesn't become intelligence until you get up there and read that shit. And it doesn't become active or revolutionary until you do something with the knowledge from having read all of those books. And Flat Earth or the destruction of heliocentrism sure as hell ain't the only fucking book that's out there. This shit is childish. It's really fucking childish. And you got grown-ass people that are defending, oh, my feelings are hurt because we're actually good people. We have good intentions and we're just regular old flat earthers out here, and how dare you talk about it? Shut the fuck up with all that. They still playing that ass role, that dumb ass role. It just, that's how weak this shit is. This shit is weak. It's whack. It's weak and whack. It's ridiculous. So I'll close this out by saying I've already said it in so many different ways, but how I had it in my head is like as the memory code or whatever, just the tagline for it was weaknesses. So in this psychological war that's going on, this art of war, you have to know the enemy's weaknesses. If you're going, this is another way to turn potential energy into kinetic energy. It's just potential if you're just floating around like a starseed, Lemurian, Atlantean, Andromedan, Pleiadian, Orion, whatever you want to kind of indigo star, being you want to call your rainbow children, whatever you want to call yourself. It's just potential energy until you realize that there's an energy and an intelligence that's working against you or against the nature of you, not you personally, but the nature of nature. That's what a parasite works against in order to stay alive. You do all the work. It just stays in your stomach like a fucking tapeworm. Doesn't have to do anything but eat off of your ignorance of the fact that it's in your stomach. That's what a parasite is. So this energy is just living off of the ignorance of the people. And the people who are promoting this entertainment version of something as extreme as flat earth are selling basically a McDonald's parasitic intelligence in a new version, in a flat earth Happy Meal box. It's the same shit. It might taste different. It might have an organic Happy Meal, but you still got a Happy Meal that you're going to have to deal with that so-called happy psychology. You might feel happy right now, but your happy is based upon your level of consciousness. If you ain't did shit for your level of consciousness, you will be happy with a McDonald's toy. You'll be happy. That's what all these gatekeepers and all these controlled oppositions are for. That's what Alex Jones represents. That's what, in my eyes, these potato shows and these desensitization flat earth programs are. They're all out there to keep you in that lower state of, like Dr. John Henrik Clarke was talking about, slavery. As long as you're in slavery, is the same as in entertainment. As long as you're in that slave consciousness, anything that you're given, any kind of bread and circus that's thrown your way, you will eat it up. You'll love it because you ain't been eating shit before that. So this is why I said you have to pay attention to the weaknesses of this world, the weaknesses of this system, the weaknesses. It's an entire universe. And you can only point out the weaknesses of your enemy if you have at first built up your strength, your personal strength. So your strengths will know deeper weaknesses in the enemy because you will see more of what could be coming your way. So what's happening is the more you go into the storyline of like the human story and deprogramming the colonization of the world and the white supremacy that still exists inside people, like, and still inside people to this day. People are still, this guy, total white supremacist talking about his people are gonna kill all the not white people. Like, I don't know, I might put that video in here now if I remember.
Put your hands on me. No, I ain't gonna I'm gonna kill your bitch. You gonna kill me? Come on. I am. You putting cameras on me? Come on.
I am.
But cameras.
Just for the record, that was 3 N-bombs in 12 seconds.
You get out of this neighborhood. You're in the wrong neighborhood.
Wrong neighborhood. My people are gonna bury you. Look at this. Yeah, I'm the president. Man, shut the up. Shut the up.
No,
shut the up.
our neighborhood.
Your neighborhood?
Yeah.
We built these streets.
No, they
White man built these streets.
No, they did not.
Yeah, they did. White man built these streets.
The rancher was identified as Stephen J. Watts and was arrested for harassment and obstruction. In court, the judge apparently expressed concern at Watts' 4 prior assault convictions, although he pleaded not guilty and said,
I'm getting harassed everywhere I go in this town. Everywhere I go in this town, I get harassed.
About racism, we're talking about the white supremacy behavior of white people. That racism was the #1 mental health problem in the nation, and it was the #1 cause of other mental health problems. And I wanted to understand what this thing of racism really is all about, because it's the thing that has caused woe and misery and suffering for the vast majority of the people on this planet that are classified as non-white. And in my attempt to understand why the necessity of white people to keep saying that white is superior and that the condition of non-white is inferior, and the more I thought about it, in conjunction with an idea that a friend of mine had, that racism was a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people, I put those ideas together with what we know about genetics, what we know about the condition.
That's a psychological disease. It's a psychological and a spiritual disease. These are the things that still exist inside the collective. That was just an example of an individual suffering from this ignorant ass disease. That disease is an expression of white supremacy. How many diseases you think are spawned from being told you live on a globe, being told that you're less than human, 3/5 of a human, of man? What kind of side effects do you think come from, hours upon hours and thousands of hours of mind control, of looking at one particular type of human being in Hollywood, on television, and looking at one particular storyline for so long? Columbus, Christmas, Easter, Halloween, the heliocentric time grid, so on and so forth. How long? How long does it take to anchor that into an individual consciousness? Do you think we're well over that quota? Of course you are. Well over it. The proof of that is when people are defending. They defend their own enslavement because they're so ignorant of what enslavement actually means. That's when you know that the system of psychological warfare is very effective and active within the people. And you can pretty much do whatever you want. They're so desensitized and distracted. People will believe anything. Proof of this, look at your so-called president of the United States. If anybody is believing any of that shit is real, then you're dealing with the undead. These are zombies. Same thing goes for 9/11. Don't think, what do you think? This Trump shit is happening on top of 9/11. So people, this is why Trump has to be so loud. Because the amount of information you need John Oliver, you need Trevor Noah, you need Stephen Colbert, you need Jimmy Fallon, you need Jimmy Kimmel, you need Samantha Bee, you need Bill Maher, you need MSNBC, Fox News, RT, you need all these people. all these communication programming devices and time codes. You need all these styles in order to distract you from the potential energy that can easily be activated, which is by you questioning the basic storyline of what's been going on. 9/11, heliocentrism, colonialism, white supremacy. The list goes on and on and on and on. These are those weaknesses that I was talking about. It's not just flat. It's just not heliocentrism. That whole flat is that flat. It's flat and that's that shit. That's an actual like code in there. It becomes cultish, and like I was explaining, I can't take away from that. It becomes cultish because you're just dealing with one thing. Like, think about some individual right now that's got their house full of just flat earth stuff, and that's it, and then that's their life. They think that they've discovered their creator. They think of somebody who just found out, like, you know, they got all the information that they need to know about the heliocentric deception from like watching hours and, you know, days of YouTube video, and they never want to get on the internet again. They never want to research anything again because they think they figured it out. There's people who have done that. There's people who are going to do that. There's probably somebody's going to do that very soon. Probably somebody doing it right now. They think, oh, that's it. That's all I need to know about my reality. Is there something wrong with that? No, of course not. Anybody can do whatever the hell they want to do. But what I'm saying is that the same thing is happening when people are defending something that, you know, doesn't need to be defended. It's just when you ask people to expand the conversation, you're not attacking them. See, that's what people have problems with this channel. When you're asking people to expand the conversation, expand the consciousness, open the doors to start expanding, like, what's going on, and they're so fucking sensitive. Your presence is so threatening because of their own programming. Your story, your interpretations of what's going on is such a threat to their little happy, you know, cubbyhole of this little world that they think you're attacking them. It's bullshit. Like, generally, like, there's very many. I would assume that anybody can pick, you know, sometimes some little time codes out of whatever videos when I was talking about that mainstream flat earth community and say, oh, well, that's obviously attack. I'm not saying that there haven't been attacks. What I'm talking about is the general overtone of my approach, my intent, which is the expansion of the conversation, the expansion of what the fuck is going on out here, and not to get caught up in this cultish sort of like, oh, well, this is just it and that's that. No, it's not it and that's not that. That's just your little fucking entertainment show. And it's disgusting when you start to look at all the other perspectives. Like I said, it's starting the bar very fucking low. With something as deep as flat earth, like I said, I'll close it out on this because I just wanted to focus on the weaknesses, like to say that out loud so I can hear it and so people can hear it too. But to take something, like I said, to finish it out, to take something like the deception of heliocentrism and just, you know, turn it into, well, we just need to get the mainstream to acknowledge that it's not a globe, instead of addressing the actual cancer that the mainstream is, instead of addressing the very nature of the university system and the control grid on consciousness as a whole. Like, what are we really talking about here? You're missing the biggest weapon that is within the realization that this heliocentric deception is a total deception. Like, to go just to simplify it just to nothing, to let's just wait till CNN picks it up. If that's not suspicious to you in any kind of way, or at least in some kind of way, then I don't know what else to say. Maybe you don't really need to be listening to what's going on here. I'm just, questioning this because, like I said, you can focus on the play school version of flat earth interpretations by the Mayan and the ancient cosmologies, which is just the shape of the flat and the dome versus the globe. Or you can challenge yourself to go into the human story, which is the symbolism that's being spoken of within these ancestral cultures. See, that takes internal change. That takes some change that a lot of these potato heads, they ain't ready to go into. They haven't done that work, and they think they've done all the work they need to do. They think they don't need to do anything else. You know these little arrogant little fuckers that are out there thinking they just, you can hear it leaking out of their voice like, oh, this is all I need to do. I don't need to look at all that information. I just do my stuff over here and then everything will be okay. You motherfuckers are the ones keeping the system alive because you got all this potential to actually talk about it, but you ain't said shit about it. You just trying to protect your little show. It's bullshit. Knowing that YouTube and Google is filtering and holding back information, you motherfuckers are doing the same thing. You doing the same thing. Google, you got the same fucking algorithms as YouTube, Google, and Facebook. Talking all this shit about y'all the motherfuckers that are holding back information too. Talking about, oh, this is the only thing that I talk about. All right. If that's it, fine. Like I said, ain't nothing wrong with that. Do whatever it is that you got to do. But for the people who are getting locked into these, like I said, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. But you're not just you when you're on YouTube like that. You got all these people who are listening to that, and they're gonna think that, like I said, there's that person who's gonna cut that computer off and go live in the rest of the world and think that's it. They ain't got know nothing else out there. Now, I'm not saying that's anybody's responsibility. All I'm just saying, I'm just using these examples to expand the storyline to see where I'm coming from. It's not just what you're talking about, it's also what this entire storyline represents. There's a very definite mainstream within this flat earth so-called community. And it's based upon flat versus globe, ultimately. The side dishes, in their opinions, are like, in my opinion, are the main course. Like the human story is just the side piece to the flat versus globe. That's what really matters. And that's what I have a lot of questions for too. Like, what are your goals? Like I said, people say, oh yeah, well, I have faith in humanity, and then some people don't even say that, or they don't even have any goals, or like a lot of these people, and like, what are their goals here? Like, when you really ask them, like Jaren or, Eric, or I still ain't heard shit about that. None of them. Mark, Eric, Jaren, I call all them motherfuckers out. None of them, they say, I ain't heard shit about what their goals are. That's when you start realizing who these people actually are. When you hear what they're about. Anybody can be against heliocentrism. Anybody can be against, racism and all. That's obvious. But when you start asking these people and talking to them what they're about what they're about, then that's when you start to hear another storyline. And a lot of these people are hiding that shit on purpose because they haven't done the work themselves. And like I said, this is not no very linear thing we're talking about when you're talking about flat earth. This is talking about the nature of humanity. You're talking about the ancestors. You're talking about time. You're talking about the sun, the earth, the moon, the stars, the water, all the elements. You're talking about all this. It ain't as simple as the potato crew and all these mainstream flat earthers want to put it out there because it's trendy and hip. It ain't that simple. They want to make you think it's that simple. So when their little style of approach is picked up by the mainstream media, then they become vindicated. They become like, oh yeah, we did it. They can start celebrating. Like I said, in reference to the John Henrik Clarke quote earlier about slavery being, once you start history in slavery, anything becomes progress. Well, once you start flat earth in flat versus globe, anything becomes progress. So the mainstream don't got to do shit. but acknowledge flat versus globe, and these motherfuckers are going to think that it's progress. And that's what I'm saying is the cliff right back into that Civil Rights Act emptiness, that nothingness. Racism wasn't, the psychology of racism and white supremacy wasn't addressed with the Civil Rights Act. The psychology of heliocentrism and deception and control will not be addressed when you have a Flat Earth Act. The psychology and the deception will not be addressed, and you will have people throwing fucking parties because of this Flat Earth Act, the same way they were throwing parties back during the Civil Rights Act. So, for the people who have ears to hear and eyes to see that this shit is going on, start to think for yourself and stop relying on these people who got shit to do their damn selves. I'm not saying I don't have work to do myself. I'm saying not like I'm any separate from them. I'm just saying that these people who are telling you that they got all the answers and it's just flat and that's that, then you need to start asking some more fucking questions. If you can't see that there's something wrong with that, then that's the best case scenario for you. Go ahead, follow them. Follow them right off that cliff of nothing. That cliff of shit, just a shinier bag of shit. Anyway, I didn't think this video was going to go that route. I just wanted to talk about some weaknesses in the system. Shit. Anyway. Yeah, so I'll close it out on that. Like I said before. You can be all celebrating, throwing parties, and be all happy about flat earth, and when it gets picked up by the mainstream or when people start talking about it, but that's not gonna really do shit for the systematic implosion of the consciousness of the masses of people. It's just gonna be some like flesh wound at best. That's what all this distraction is going to be. Or when the mainstream media adopts or co-ops the flat earth, they'll just turn it into a flesh wound. Because the people who are pushing this information, they will be happy with a flesh wound. They'll be happy. They'll be perfectly fine with that because they think, a lot of them, whether they consciously or unconsciously, don't matter. They think the system is broken and it just needs to be fixed. You have a whole universe of people who are saying this system was never broken. It was meant to be this way. And if you are being this weak-minded, shallow thinking ass individual to think that once the mainstream starts to pick this up and the system's just broken, it's just going to fix itself, you are just as much of a problem and a threat to actual change than the damn Donald Trumps and Alex Jones and mainstream people themselves. It's the same shit. It's actually worse because you're going to get people to walk further and further and further into the mind control that you're unaware of. So this is people talking about simulation theory and all this stuff right now in reference to flat earth as if it's just a simulation. Coincidence that Mark Sargent is a video game programmer or whatever the fuck he was or is, and like that whole simulation mentality that you're just a group of energy. They don't have no spirituality to them. What kind of spirituality does Mark and Patricia got? Where are they coming from? If this is a spiritual war and a psychological war, what the fuck you think they're about? And like I said, I'm not saying this to have any expectations on them. I'm saying this because they projected themselves out there to be some kind of fucking leaders out there. And you got thousands of people following them and defending them. And you say that this is a psychological and a spiritual warfare, but these fucking leaders that are out there, where are they coming from? What are their spiritual interpretations of this reality? What are they talking about? What are their goals? Do they have any kind of tactical approach to this psychological and spiritual warfare? No. They're fucking kids. They're like Bam Bam throwing around toys, this new toy in the toy bin, thinking that, you know, everything's just cool and it'll just fix itself. The parents will come back. They'll fix it. Just let them tell us that it's flat on the mainstream media, and the parents, the big brother, they'll fix everything. And then the defense mechanism to that is, oh, well, you know, we talk about conspiracy theory. We talk about 9/11. We all talk about that as flat earthers, don't we, guys? Yeah, right? Yeah, we're cool. We're hip. For real. Man, I'm done with this. I keep distracting myself from saying the one thing, and I've said it already. Weaknesses. If you're not going to empower yourself, like I was saying in the last video, that was focusing more on the empowerment perspective. Get your roots, get in there. Somebody asked about music. I don't know. It's different for everybody. What kind of music to get you closer to your spirit? It's different for everybody. Start learning music as a language. That's one way. That's one way I'm going to start looking at it. That's one way to open up your spirit. I didn't really think about it till now, but music is a language. Start listening to people from, you know, a composition or something like that. That's another way. Just listen to music and learn music in general, and not, you know, particularly like prescription drug music that's gonna fit, you know, open your third eye or some shit like that. You know, just start doing all kinds of learning different languages and interpreting this reality. So what I'm saying is that in the last video was focused more on empowerment. This video I'm saying, okay, well, for the warriors that are out there, for the people who are in tune and inclined to go about this information, start piecing out, start pulling apart the weaknesses of the system itself and expanding the information on those weaknesses. So you can, it's one thing to just talk about information. It's another thing to take the weaknesses and connect them to other weaknesses, so people can see the bigger picture of, they can see a bigger map of the weaknesses of this entire monster that is this system. See, just focusing on heliocentrism, that's just one little weakness. But and then when you have people sharing it as an entertainment, it's not even seen as a weakness. It gets over that war tactic gets overshadowed by entertainment value and just like fluffy, happy-go-lucky bullshit. No, this is an actual weakness in this psychological and spiritual war. Use it as such. Or not. Or just keep playing fucking Barney Land and Pee Wee Herman and, you know, just TV show versions of what's going on. But for the people who are actually going to do something about this, start figuring out like when some of the weaknesses, the examples of that I was talking about. White supremacy is an obvious weakness. It goes completely against anything natural. It goes completely against anything, you know, that is human in any kind of way. Like it's just a complete chaotic implant that's still that's why I talk about it so much, because it's not only a weakness in society when you bring it about, that, you know, if you just say anything about it just for a moment and people get real butthurt, especially the system itself, they have to avoid it. So whatever the system is avoiding is a weakness. Colonialism is something that the system avoids. Genocide, materialism, slavery, the real stories of the indigenous people, the melanated people across the earth. Like, obviously, heliocentrism being a lie. This, you know, capitalistic Western civilization, like Columbus discovering America, like all of this, these are all weaknesses in the system because they're obvious lies. They're obvious. It's easy to talk about them once you actually see it that way. But a lot of people just completely stay away from it because they just say, oh, well, that's a different vibration than me. I don't go into that, or whatever the hell is being said. And then, you know, nothing comes about. It just, so, yeah. Start picking apart these weaknesses that are in this system and take that step, as one step, because a lot of people don't even know that that's a thing, and like it's a way to approach what's going on. And then once people take that step, then you'll know what the next step is. Point being is that that's actually taking potential energy and turning it into kinetic energy. It's another example. And I'll close it out on that. Take this potential energy, this information, whatever it is, take it and turn it into kinetic energy your own way. Make your own music, do whatever it is that you're going to do. If you have that intent to do something with it, then do something with it. But just turning it into a radio TV show, just happy, desensitized, don't even think about this as a war, as a fucking psychological and spiritual war. It's just a thing it's hip, it's cool. It's, look at my flat earth microphone, look at my flat earth poster, my shirt, or whatever the fuck it is. Like, I'm not saying like to point anybody out. I'm just saying individually. I mean, generally, like, this is a fucking commercial. That's some bullshit. Like, it like, for me, that's just some ridiculous ass shit. I'm not saying I wouldn't say wear a shirt that references something about flat earth. I'm just saying that, like, overall, very generally, the commercialization of flat earth is more dangerous than heliocentrism, because it's a new version of mind control once it gets co-opted by the system. And that's what these potato heads are setting up for people. It's just like, oh yeah, this is a cool little desensitized space that I'm in right now, just hanging out. Cool information, yeah, 9/11, all that stuff, prison industrial complex, all that, all this. Lied about a universe, everything's okay, it'll be all right. As soon as the mainstream media picks it on up, here we go. What's the new flat earth video today? That's it for a lot of people. And they think they've got it. Like I said, the person who just cuts it off and runs away, it's like, that's it. Yeah, they think they've got it. A lot of people in the flat earth, they think that's it. It's flat and that's that. All right, it ain't flat and like that. It's more than that. So, yeah. That's the other side. Turn this potential energy into kinetic energy. If you are a tactical thinker, start looking at this information, your editing techniques or your approaches to this information in a way that's going to help people see things from a perspective they might have never thought of before. That's what I think about when I do a lot of these videos or a lot of these compilations. It's like, connect this with this to show that this is the same thing. It's the same effect on people. It's the same alchemy. Once we start doing that, see, this flat versus globe potato crew stuff is just, it's very linear. It's cheap. It's basic. It's some basic ass shit. It's just fucking dry and shit. It's just fucking plain as it's like a ham and cheese sandwich with no condiments and like Wonder Bread. It's like the most bland, dry out your mouth ass reality out there. Could you eat it and survive for the rest of your life? More than likely. People have survived on less. Will you be healthy psychologically, physically, and spiritually? Fuck no. Why not? Because there's something else. There's more that you could have gone into if only you did. But when you subject yourself to just, this is it, I mean, then that's it. You're gonna believe, you're gonna create your own universe, no different than heliocentrism did. So on that note, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the support. I thought this was gonna be a shorter video. I hoped it. I could have cut it out earlier, but anyway, yeah. Thanks for the support. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.